Man, y'all's site right now, I'm sure the traffic is going crazy.
Oh, yeah.
SicEm365. Part of it is I'm on there quite a bit right now. In fact, I was looking at the Bearcast mailbag you and Grayson do,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact, Colt, I was looking for you this week. I'm like, okay, what's Colt written about this? What's Colt
Yeah.
said? And it's interesting because I think you've kind of had to kind of go in your bunker and you're kind of deciding, as co-founder and the CEO, all the grand poobah over there, how you are going to manage all this. But that your subscribers, they demand all this inside information from you, all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. It is interesting because you hate to see it. You hate to see somebody that might get fired, but you
Right.
also know what people are coming to you for right now. And I heard y'all say something about, like, isn't it weird? Like, part of you thinks, okay, it's our job to. I mean, the great thing about Sam Bradshaw is he's going to dig in and look at UCF, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's gonna break down that roster. But what do you think the homecoming crowd? I'll start there.
Yeah.
What
Well,
Where do
go
you
ahead.
think this is going to look like? Because I'll be on TV 9 o'clock before that game. I'll be hustling over there. You would think usually the parade group's going to come over, and so you get the homecoming bump.
Yeah.
But you also have people that are really, really down on this program and this head coach right now. What do we think this scene's going to look like Saturday?
Yeah. I think if there's one thing that Baylor fans plan for, it's the fact that you come to homecoming once a year. I mean, even in the bad years, man, like you'd have a decent crowd when you're anticipating not to win. So I think that you look at last season and you look at 8-4, 8-5, and you say, "Oh yeah, let's make our plans for homecoming. We're going to be there. It'll be a fun time." And then, regardless of how the season goes, probably going to be a decent crowd. Now, are they going to be there at halftime? That's the question. We've seen it, time even when they're good, and it gets to be a little, wonky on the score, good or bad. People decide to leave. Parents' weekend even kind of gets that way. So, to me, this isn't probably the best gauge. Now, you get to the Utah game, or you get to Houston to end the season after Thanksgiving, and that's probably going to be a pretty good indicator of where this fan base is. And we've seen it, back and forth. Even the Arizona State game this year was a fine crowd, but not what you anticipate for playing the Big 12 champion, anticipations of a possible Big 12 championship game for your own team. And, you have a lot of empty seats. And that was an indicator for me of where this fan base was. But also, you just got to consistently win, and they haven't done it. And, if Dave Aranda wins, I think that you put to bed a lot of these questions about, will the fan base support him? Because at the end of the day, this fan base will show up for a winner, and he just hasn't done it consistently enough.
Man, they got the open week after. Do you think the
Yeah.
way it's feeling right now that win or lose, it's like 50-50 that this might be the time to change? Where are you there? And
Mm-hmm.
then what do you think it makes the most sense from a interim standpoint? Because on one hand, you got Keenan, who's kind of known as the great recruiter. It might be kind of fun to see what he could do, get a kind of a look at him. Spavital is the former head coach, who in some ways is a logical choice. What
Yeah.
do you think on those two fronts?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to make a move, I think it was the bye week. I mean, I think that has to set up for that, especially, you potentially lose to UCF. I mean, in front of a homecoming crowd, that just makes it like a really easy breaking point. With that said, money's tight these days. Like if there truly is a buyout drop for this, what you know, Dave Aranda, you're sitting at, say it's $2 million drop by the time you get into December.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big chunk of change. I mean, regardless if you're trying to get a donor to offset this stuff. So I could see this playing out. They might have a decision made, but they play out until December 1 just because finances. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, because if you lose the UCF at home, I mean, there. How can you really sit on that much longer? And who comes up to the plate to say they're going to make a change and be comfortable with it? So, as far as an interim goes, at this point, I would just say it's Jake Spavital. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm giving it to anyone else. He has that experience, and not that they're going to go the interim route to head coach route with anyone that they promote, but if you're going to go an interim route, why would you give it to someone on your staff that wouldn't even necessarily have a chance to get that job? And I'm not saying they're going to go that direction. I'm not insinuating that by any means, but Jake Spavital just seems to make too much sense in this moment to lead this team. I mean, he's arguably has the best position that he coaches on this team. He's a leader of an offense. And remember, Dave Aranda said, I'm going to hire a guy that has head coaching experience to run my offense. And that was the reason he was brought in, and he kind of oversees that day to day. And I think that makes the most sense, especially why would you go the Matt Powledge route, considering he hasn't had a lot of responsibilities in terms of overall team. Dave Aranda took on the defensive coordinator position, as we know, last year. So I think Jake Spavital would just make too much sense if something came to that and Mac Rose decided to make a change.
Dave he did not get it. It's 4-4. Defense has not shown much improvement. I listen each week, and you and Colt, you talk about different things. Hey, try this, try that. Do you give him any sort of a little bit of grace on they have lost a few players, but I mean,
sure.
Again, there's no pressure. Their turnover margin is horrible. Almost every defensive metric I guess he ran out of people. In some ways, he's kind of run out of people to fire, right? I mean, I don't think he's a particularly vindictive guy, yet he has gone through quite a few people. And then when you decide, hey, I'm the one to bail us out, and I'm going to be the defensive coordinator or the defensive play caller, there's nobody else to point to. Like I just feel like he's run out of anything. And so the only thing he has to fall back on now would be, well, we've put this pretty good recruiting class together. We see with some of these other firings, they don't care, right? Yeah. You think LSU the other night when they were talking to their donors coming out of the buyout, were like, but we've got this great player. We got this great defensive lineman who's the number one player in the country. What if we lose him? They don't care. Yeah. And I think Baylor, though, their recruiting class for 2026 is pretty good. I mean, it's right there around the top 25. Colt, I guess it's gotten to the point where that really is not part of the consideration of this decision, correct?
Yeah. No, I don't think it can. Now, I will say, regardless of who LSU has in there, they're going to recruit, right? Like I think they're in a much different situation. Baylor has to be careful. They have to tread lightly on recruiting discussions because you have a guy in there that can't recruit to Baylor, and then you're up a creek. I think LSU recruits itself, and Baylor can to an extent. It's just a different way. You're not looking at top 10 classes that you're giving up. But you need to be in that top 25, top 30 range pretty consistently, because we saw when Dave Aranda got out of that range for multiple years how it hurt him. And then he's back to this, and that's the argument. That's always been, what are you going to do with NIL? What are you going to do with the transfer portal when you have this in place? And that was my biggest, going back to 2023. Dave Aranda is going to have to do something with those tools to remain at Baylor. He did it for 2024, but now we've seen this year it hasn't held up. And now he could finish 8-4. But, for him specifically on the defensive side of the ball, we can talk about injuries. I said this in a podcast a couple weeks ago. This isn't about the long-standing ability to have a great defense every week. Just give me something to be hopeful about.
Correct.
We haven't seen anything for 2 years. There's some flashes. Last year they were decent creating sacks late in the year. They got plenty of turnovers that kind of propelled them on that winning streak. But outside of that, what have we seen since the end of 22? 23, no. Most of 24, no. All of 25, no. And that's the biggest cause for concern in retaining someone like Dave Aranda is if you can't do it right now after you've utilized the portal for 2 years, even though you've had guys injured, you can't fire someone else. You can't fire your general manager because he didn't recruit well enough for you. He's been there for multiple years, and Aaron Hunt. Like, where does the blame go? It doesn't go anywhere but Dave Aranda on the defense side of the ball. And I think there are some, offensively, I think probably doesn't get enough of the credit for the struggles this year. I think turning the football over one has just been a major issue. But you can't rely on your offense to be perfect all the time. And that's what they've had to do this year to win any games. And that's a problem in and of itself. If you're not able to get off the field defensively, your offense in turn feels the pressure of needing to do it all. And I'm sure that mounted throughout this season and obviously came to a head. And now you're 4-4 and looking at a really rough finish if you don't get things turned around.
Colt, who excites you? Like when you kind of start thinking about names, it's going to be a crowded space with so many openings. Yeah. People say, well, you can't hire another defensive coordinator or offense coordinator. Well, I mean, you can say that, but what did Dillingham do? What did Kirby do? Some of these great coaches out there, what did they do before they got hired? Lanning. I mean, they were, and again, I'm talking about some of these guys are from the greatest programs in the country. I'm not saying you can just dial it up, but some of those names that seemed like GJ, Kenny, that's cooled off because Texas State's had a really down year. The coach at UTSA, I think that's cooled off a little bit because they've fallen off a bit. He might have been an interesting fit. Are there, and some of this stuff you'll want to put on your private site and sure, which I'm a member of, so I want to respect that. But like when you think about like what would excite this fan base, I think you got to get back. I mean, part of me says you got to get an offensive coach because like when this was at its greatest and when this was the most fun was the guy we were just talking about earlier with Art Briles. I mean, part of you thinks get back to having an identity, which this team unfortunately doesn't really have right now. What is your gut telling you, and what are the people you sort of talk to and about these sorts of things? Where are you thinking Baylor might look?
Yeah, I mean, the last two hires, Dave Aranda and Matt Rule to an extent, which Matt had a background on the offensive line, but he's not really an offensive guy. He was going to hire a coordinator and not run his own offense. Like he was just more of the CEO type that instilled culture, et cetera. And I think that's valuable. But I'm with you, and having someone that's an offensive minded, I don't want to say coordinator, but a head coach. Like I'm not going to say they're going to go after Eric Morris, but he has an identity in his offense, and he's bringing that to his next job, whatever it might be. And he's done it everywhere. And now, yeah, you can say, well, it's North Texas currently. It's not anywhere else. But Baylor's not going to be the program to go out and hire insert X Power 4 coach, right? Like it's not going to happen. So you're going to have to take some risks. There's not going to be a candidate without a flaw or without a concern. But I mean, without going too far down this road, I mean, like what Will Stein at Oregon, like he's kind of been around the block. And if you're looking down that coordinator route, someone in that vein might make sense, right? Like that could be a potential type of hire. And, but I just don't know in general what type of battle Baylor is capable of being in for this coaching carousel. Like I don't know if it's a retread. I don't know if they're going to be willing. Would Mac be willing to go down the road of a retread of a Billy Napier or a James Franklin, which he's going to get plenty of attention. He wasn't bad at Penn State. He has plenty of success. He has the resume at Vanderbilt, et cetera. I just, I don't know which route Mac will go, but I'm with you. I think that you have to go. I don't want to overcorrect. I don't want to go away from the idea of a defensive-minded head coach and just leave it at that and go straight offense. I think you need some balance, but I think there's the potential to be an offensive-minded head coach that leans into the run game that aids the defense. So what is that? Do you want to go Eric Morris, who has the Mike Leach roots? I think that's a kind of concern because if you feel like this program's been a little soft the last couple of years, that might not be the route that you wanted to go to switch that culture. So I think there's a lot of questions. But I think if you're going to go on the offensive side of the ball, I'm looking at a power run game and finding someone that is able to spread it out and run the football. Jake Spavital checks that box. Like, if I'm going to go hire GJ Kinney, why not just promote Jake Spavital at this point? Like, I think there's those questions that happen as well. If you're going to go straight offensive mind, well, I mean, Jake Spavital is a pretty good offensive mind, but he has the concerns of his time at Texas State. So I'm looking on the offensive side of the ball as well, but someone that can instill a culture of running and being physical. And that's why I like, maybe a Will Stein makes sense. Like, he's been there at Oregon, what Dan Lanning and what they have done on both sides of the ball. Obviously a lot of talent, but he's been instilled, and he also knows Texas. So just an idea, just a thought of someone that could be a possible candidate, but I have no real insight on him specifically.
All right. And Will Stein was at UTSA.
Yeah.
And probably played the biggest role in Novosad when they flipped him to Oregon. I think Will Stein was probably involved in that. The Mac Rhodes, I had to laugh today because I did think, I've just noticed, like, on your boards and everything, again, not giving anything away here, but have you noticed, like, they always pick that same picture of Mac? And it was the first time I scrolled down and actually looked at the pants and the shoes, and I did have to chuckle. I'm like, okay, this is why they keep using this picture of him.
He has a suit for every occasion. Like, you see him, and he's dressed accordingly. So obviously that particular situation was a celebratory event, and I don't know exactly what it was, but he's got his styles for everything, man.
When you see people kind of fed up with him. Yeah. This will be a huge hire, and we'll see who he brings in to help him and all that kind of thing. He's been known to go lone wolf, and he's been known to go really silent. Other places we kind of like hear this and hear that. And boy, you were at we were hearing, I remember even the diversionary tactic of hearing about Gundy on one of those hires. Might have been when they hired Matt Rule, and that Gundy actually did show interest. I don't think they ever talked to Mike, but I think Mike actually reached out. I don't think Gundy's a candidate here. Mac is on this one right now. There people are mad at Aranda, but this is the first time, and not the first time, but Mac's getting more and more heat. You and I both know him pretty well and have spent a lot of time both publicly and privately, with him. I guess what we both know is this is huge. This is he got a 10-year extension. It's not like Baylor's looking to move him or anything, but we also look at other schools, and when football can't get it right, somebody's going to have to pay at some point. But think about how weird this is. Mac now has to possibly fire a coach Saturday and then get ready and go vote on college football playoff. And then, oh, by the way, he's the chairperson for it. So he has to answer for their deal every week. So on one hand, that's an exciting thing for Baylor to have somebody representing them like this. But he's got a lot that he's dealing with right now. And I sense that I think he's pretty upset. Like, just kind of like they've given this guy every possible chance, everything he wants. Oh, you don't want to talk to any of these guys every week? You don't want to do media? You don't want to do that? We'll let you do anything you want, and yet it hasn't worked. It's not working. Where do you think Mac is in all this right now?
Yeah, well, I think you and I both know, and I think that enough people know him that we can speak on the type of competitor he is, and publicly and privately. Like, I think the things that maybe people take at the face value and say, well, maybe I believe that. But the things that he says about being competitive, I truly believe that's who he is. And so you start talking about these moments of making tough decisions. He's not going to be the 80 that throws his coach under the bus, but there's tough conversations being had. I believe that fully. And you're right. Like, this is a guy that I don't want to say went to bat for, because Dave Aranda was so well respected out of LSU, but he made that leap when he possibly could have gone another route after what Matt Rule did of being able to hire a coach. And he went this route, taking a leap of faith, and this guy could be here for a long time. And I don't want to say overcorrected from Matt Rule, but I think he went that route of like, who's going to be loyal to me? And he was going to be in turn loyal to them. So he wins the Big 12 championship, a Sugar Bowl, Dave Aranda does, and he extends it and goes through. I don't even know where the contract goes through, but since then, I think there's been these milestones of unforgiveness of decisions by Dave Aranda. And I think Dave Aranda is so transparent and honest that it hurts him, of why we moved on from Ron Roberts, why we didn't use NIL, why we didn't use a transfer portal. And I think if, maybe PR, he can cover his tracks up a little bit better. But as far as Matt goes, man, I just don't envision him being okay with this. I think he understood that he did not do what he needed to do personally through NIL and transfer portal, probably NIL specifically early on. And he was willing to give Dave Aranda grace for that because he's partially accepting responsibility for not leading his athletic department in the right direction. But now that's 3 years ago. I mean, that's 3 seasons ago, 4 or 2 seasons ago, however you want to calculate that. And he's given him every resource to fix that. They've gone above and beyond with recorrecting NIL. Dave Aranda's had the opportunity to evaluate who needs to evaluate and bring in, and those continue to not produce the high-end results, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And so I just don't, Dave Aranda, Mack Rhodes mentioned it, I think publicly, even that he brought in a defensive-minded head coach to have a good defense, and he hasn't had one now for 4 consecutive seasons. I mean, every defense has been outside the top 50 in F plus, FEI, S&P plus, all those advanced analytics for 4 straight seasons. And I from a competitor standpoint, I don't believe Mack Rhodes is okay with that. I think that he understands the predicament they're in, but he also understands the evolving landscape. And I think that's why he's been hesitant to do anything before, possibly now.
All right. It turned out, Colt, he was just a really horrible hire for NIL. And of course, NIL didn't exist when he got hired. He was coming off the national championship. So I think even Mack would have to admit, now that he's watched this play out, and what we'll never know is, like, would Joey have been better? Because of course now he has these massive resources. That's a hard one to know. Joe, if the NIL had been in place, we might have been able to take a look at those 2 individuals and go, well, this guy may be a better fit to help us with NIL. But again, it didn't exist. It didn't exist at the time. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I would say even on that with Joey, I mean, until this year, where has Tech been? I mean, that's my honest assessment. Until they had an unlimited budget to go out and get what he needed. Yeah. I think that you could have put him at Alabama with that budget, and he turns out something pretty good. But before this season, when Cody Campbell was willing to say, hey, here's your unlimited checkbook to go out and get the guys that you needed, I mean, he's been an 8-win coach. I mean, that's the reality. And would that have translated any different at Baylor this year with a limited budget compared to what he had at Tech? I can't envision that it changes that much. So I'm anxious to see how that plays out. But it's hard for me to retrospectively look back and say, oh, Joey McGuire should have been the guy. Yeah. And I'm in agreement there. There's no proof that he would have done anything different at Baylor without that excess of funds.
He would have connected better with the fan base than Dave from a personality standpoint. True. But that's probably the
would Baylor fans be willing to hang on to a 7-win Joey McGuire this year after the same path that he endured at Tech, or would they be discontent?
I think they'd be, I mean, just from I don't know. That's good. I think right now.
I don't know. I don't know if we could.
Right now, 7-4 looks like a pipe dream.
Sure.
And so it's hard to say. He had the right personality for West Texas, especially following well. So he stepped into the perfect situation, and he was great for Rule. It's just interesting because in some ways he owes his entire career. Now, he had a great high school, what he did. But, think about it. He's taken Matt Rule's blueprint in pretty much everything he does, and then he's gotten this huge cash fund that came, shooting out of Cody Campbell's gun. It'd be nice to see what it would feel like to have a Cody Campbell. So it's like, on one hand, I laugh and go, okay, where were y'all before this massive amount of funds? But on one hand, I'm jealous, right? They're sitting there with one loss and may, have a pretty decent shot to be in the college football playoff. And Baylor's not anywhere close. Can't sniff it right now. But
I'm in full agreement. I mean, I think if it was throw, donor X, Bob Simpson or whoever that was willing to say, hey, here you go. Here's your $50 million budget for the next 2 calendar years to exceed your expectations on the football field. Well, Dave Aranda might have done pretty well this year too. And it's just so hard to tell. But I think that's where the disconnect is. Like, Dave Aranda's willingness to connect has been a burden for this program. And it's from the connecting with fans, connecting with donors, whoever it might be. This was something that went back to the 21 season when they were reluctant to promote massive matchups with Oklahoma and Texas late in the year. And not that fans didn't realize what was going on, but could you imagine going through a season and knowing that we're not going to really get the hype and marketing that we experienced in the Art Briles years of those big matchups, the blackouts? And I don't know if we would have ever experienced that. We didn't in 2021 because I think there was a lack of emphasis on that area of the program to not let games get too big, to not be bigger than the moment. And I think that hurt the program in long term.
Yeah, and they didn't build on it. They had great success. And their answer when I said, why aren't y'all doing a news conference about your recruiting class, was, we think we're doing pretty well. You think we, instead of, this is when we should be telling the world about Baylor. We just had this great season, and they didn't do enough of that. Hey, Colt, thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Fun to be able to visit with you.
Let's do it again.
Y'all do a great job, and love having Grayson on. And Ashley occasionally seems to know stuff about hoops. And so
he does.
Good to get him on. And unfortunately, we're back to that place where we're like, okay, we need our men's and women's basketball to be exciting, to give us something to look at. But we also have this possible coaching search, and that'll be great for SicEm365 and all your folks. And so you hate to have to do it, but at the same time, it's going to be huge traffic for you guys. So I'm a member, and I encourage people to do that. Thank you, Colt.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Matt.
You bet.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, there he goes, Colt Barber, and joining the Mosley Show. And as I said, Colt and my dad, they both played at Baylor, played football. So my gosh, we come by it naturally. And we've been dealing with coaching searches, and our fandom of Baylor goes way, way back. His doesn't go as far back because he's a little bit younger, as you can probably tell by looking at us, and the fact he said he has a second grader. Okay, my daughter's in college. Okay, Scotty, let's we need to hear from our partners. Then we got something great coming up from Ascension Providence later in the program. But all of that coming up next, and we'll come back and react to this.